Let me tell you something most people are scared to say out loud. A man will treat you exactly how he believes you will allow. Not how much he loves you, not how long you've been together, not how much potential he sees in you, but how much you're willing to walk away from. See, in the beginning, he calls, he texts, he shows up. Why? Because he's not sure he has you yet, but the moment a man realizes she's not going anywhere, no matter what I do, everything changes. He listens less, he tries less, he respects less. Not because he's evil, but because certainty without accountability creates laziness. Men treat you based on what you allow, and this truth is uncomfortable because it removes excuses and places power back in your hands. Many women believe that if a man truly loves them, his behavior will naturally improve. They think love alone should make him more respectful, more consistent, more caring. But love does not automatically create good behavior. Love without limits becomes lazy, and affection without standards turns into entitlement. A man's behavior doesn't shift because of how deeply he feels. It shifts because of what he knows he can and cannot get away with. From the very beginning, people observe how much they can push before you push back. It's human nature. In relationships, a man pays close attention to how you respond to disappointment, disrespect, and neglect. If he cancels plans and you immediately forgive without accountability, he learns that your time is flexible. If he speaks to you harshly and you stay silent to keep the peace, he learns that your feelings are negotiable. Each moment you ignore what hurts you, you silently teach him how to treat you next time. What you tolerate becomes the rule, not the exception. Many women confuse patience with strength and silence with maturity. They stay calm while their needs are unmet, believing that being understanding will inspire change. But understanding without boundaries often sends the wrong message. It tells a man that no matter how uncomfortable you feel, you will adjust instead of requiring him to grow. Over time, this creates an imbalance where one person carries the emotional weight while the other enjoys comfort without responsibility. The relationship doesn't become safer, it becomes one-sided. Standards are not demands, and boundaries are not threats. They are clear signals of self-respect. When you state what you expect and follow through with action, you define the value of your presence. A man may test those standards at first, not because he wants to lose you, but because he wants to understand the rules. If the rules bend every time emotions get involved, he learns that consistency is optional. If the rules remain firm, he learns that access to you requires effort, care, and respect. It's important to understand that setting limits does not mean being cold or unloving. In fact, healthy boundaries allow love to exist without resentment. When you constantly accept less than you deserve, frustration builds quietly. You may smile on the outside, but inside you feel unseen and unappreciated. Eventually, that emotional weight turns into bitterness, and by then the man is confused because he never realized there was a problem. Not because you didn't feel it, but because you never enforced it. A man responds more to clarity than to emotion. Tears may move him temporarily, arguments may shake him briefly, but consistent boundaries change behavior long term. When he knows that disrespect leads to distance, not drama, he becomes more mindful. When he understands that poor treatment costs him access to your time, energy, and affection, he begins to correct himself, not out of fear, but out of awareness. He sees that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. This is why love alone is never enough. Love must be paired with standards to stay healthy. You can care deeply and still refuse to be mistreated. You can be supportive and still say no. You can forgive and still remember what you will not accept again. When a man sees that you choose yourself without guilt, he recognizes your value more clearly. People respect those who respect themselves. Certainty without consequences creates disrespect, and this is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in relationships. Many women believe that showing loyalty at all costs will make a man feel secure enough to love them better. They think that if he knows she will stay through anything, he will appreciate her commitment and eventually change. But human behavior doesn't work that way. When certainty is not balanced with accountability, it slowly turns into complacency. What once felt like devotion begins to feel like permission. When a man becomes certain that you won't leave no matter how poorly he behaves, his sense of urgency disappears. He no longer feels the need to impress you, pursue you, or protect the relationship with intention. Not because he suddenly stops caring, but because the risk is gone. Effort is fueled by the possibility of loss. When loss no longer feels real, effort quietly fades. Calls become shorter, promises become delayed, and apologies become rare. Over time, respect erodes not in one dramatic moment, but in small, unnoticed ways. Certainty without consequence teaches a man that your boundaries are emotional, not behavioral. He hears your complaints, but he doesn't feel them. You may express disappointment, explain your pain, or even cry, but if nothing changes afterward, he learns that your reactions have no lasting impact. Words lose their power when actions never follow. Eventually, he stops taking your concerns seriously, not because they aren't valid, but because they are never enforced. Many women stay because they fear being seen as difficult, dramatic, or unloving. They worry that leaving or pulling back will make them look weak or heartless, so they endure disrespect in silence, hoping patience will fix what boundaries could. But patience without limits often communicates the opposite of what you intend. Instead of saying, "I love you," it says, "You can treat me however you want and I'll still be here." That message slowly reshapes how a man sees you in the relationship. A man does not respect unlimited access. When he knows your presence is guaranteed, he stops valuing it. This doesn't mean he stops loving you, but love without respect becomes careless. He becomes less mindful of your time, less careful with his words, and less attentive to your emotional needs. The relationship begins to revolve around his comfort rather than mutual care. You adjust, you accommodate, and you sacrifice while he remains unchanged. Consequences are not punishments, they are natural outcomes. They show that your boundaries are real. When a man experiences distance after disrespect, silence after dishonesty, or loss of access after repeated neglect, he connects his behavior to its impact. That connection is what creates awareness. Without it, he lives comfortably in the belief that things will always return to normal no matter what he does. Change cannot grow in that environment. Certainty should feel safe, not suffocating. A healthy relationship allows a man to feel secure while still understanding that respect is required to maintain closeness. When you are willing to walk away from behavior that hurts you, not in anger but in self-respect, you shift the power dynamic. You show that love does not mean endurance without limits. You show that commitment does not cancel accountability. The truth is, a man values what he can lose. When he feels that your presence depends on how he treats you, he becomes more intentional. He listens more closely, chooses his actions more carefully, and shows up more consistently. Not because he is afraid, but because he understands that relationships require maintenance. Certainty with consequences keeps love alive. Certainty without them slowly kills it. Boundaries create change, not begging, and this truth is painful because it challenges the instinct to fight harder for love when things start slipping away. When a woman feels ignored, misunderstood, or taken for granted, her first response is often emotional effort. She explains her feelings again and again, hoping that if he truly understands the depth of her pain, he will finally change. She cries, she pleads, she reminds him of the history they share, believing that emotional honesty will awaken his empathy. But most of the time, it doesn't. Not because he is heartless, but because emotion without consequence does not require action. Begging keeps you emotionally exposed while leaving the power exactly where it already is. When you chase someone for basic respect, you unintentionally send the message that your needs are negotiable and your boundaries are flexible. A man may feel temporarily guilty when he sees your tears, but guilt is not a foundation for change. It fades quickly. Once the moment passes and everything returns to normal, he learns that your pain does not alter the structure of the relationship. He may comfort you, apologize, or promise to do better, but without boundaries, those promises rarely turn into consistent behavior. Explaining repeatedly often feels productive because it gives the illusion of communication. You believe that if you say it differently, softer, or clearer, something will finally click. But most men understand far more than they admit. The issue is not confusion, it is comfort. As long as he can continue his behavior without losing anything important, there is no real reason to change. Words alone do not disrupt comfort. Boundaries do. A boundary is not a threat or an ultimatum. It is a decision you make for yourself. It sounds less like, if you do this, I'll leave, and more like, I will not stay in situations where I feel disrespected. The difference is powerful. One tries to control him, the other protects you. When you enforce boundaries calmly and consistently, you shift the dynamic without saying much at all. Your actions speak in a language that cannot be ignored. Knowing you can walk away changes how a man perceives you. It signals self-respect, emotional maturity, and independence. When a man senses that you are not clinging to him out of fear, he becomes more aware of his behavior. He understands that access to you is not guaranteed. This awareness creates reflection, something begging never does. Chasing pushes him further away, while grounded distance invites him to step forward if he truly values you. Walking away does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop abandoning yourself. Many women stay in unhealthy situations because they fear starting over or being alone. They convince themselves that enduring pain is the price of love. But love should not require you to shrink, silence yourself, or sacrifice your dignity. When you accept less than you deserve, you teach others to do the same. When you refuse, you rewrite the rules. Men change when they feel the shift, not when they hear the speech. When your energy pulls back, when your availability decreases, when your emotional labor stops being freely given, the atmosphere changes. He notices the absence before he values the presence. That is when questions. That is when effort may return. Not because you demanded it, but because your boundary created space for awareness. Sometimes walking away does not bring him back, and that is still a win. It reveals the truth that begging was only prolonging. A man who truly values you will not need to be chased into respecting you. He will rise to meet your standards when he realizes you are serious about them. And if he doesn't, you save yourself years of emotional exhaustion. Your power is self-respect, not staying. And this is one of the hardest lessons to accept in love. Many people grow up believing that endurance is strength and that staying through pain proves loyalty. They are taught that real love means holding on no matter how uncomfortable things become. But staying in situations that slowly drain you does not make you strong. It teaches others that your well-being is optional. True power comes from knowing when your peace matters more than your attachment. Self-respect changes the way you move in a relationship. When you value your inner peace, you no longer tolerate confusion, disrespect, or emotional instability just to keep someone close. You stop arguing for basic decency and stop explaining why your feelings matter. Instead, you observe behavior and make decisions accordingly. This quiet confidence speaks louder than any emotional reaction ever could. It shows that you are grounded in who you are, not desperate for validation. Protecting your peace means listening to your body and emotions when something feels wrong. Constant anxiety, overthinking, and emotional exhaustion are signals, not weaknesses. When you ignore those signs and force yourself to stay, you disconnect from yourself. Over time, you lose clarity and begin to accept things you once promised you never would. Self-respect calls you back to yourself. It reminds you that love should feel safe, not chaotic, and supportive, not draining. When a man realizes that you are willing to leave if the relationship no longer aligns with your values, something shifts. He understands that your presence is a choice, not an obligation. This awareness brings one of two outcomes. If he values you and the relationship, he becomes more intentional. He listens more carefully, shows up more consistently, and makes changes that reflect genuine effort. Not because he is being forced, but because he sees what is at stake. If he does not step up, he steps aside. And while that may hurt in the moment, it is still a victory. It saves you from investing more time, energy, and emotion into someone who is never going to meet you where you stand. Letting go is not losing, it is choosing yourself. The pain of leaving is temporary, but the damage of staying in a situation that erodes your self-worth can last for years. Many women fear that walking away means giving up or failing at love. In reality, it is often the bravest form of self-love. It takes courage to release what you hoped someone would become and accept who they are showing you they are. Self-respect allows you to grieve without betraying yourself. You can miss someone and still know that staying would cost you too much. A woman who is rooted in self-respect does not threaten to leave, she is simply prepared to. This readiness creates emotional stability rather than chaos. She does not chase, beg, or manipulate. She sets standard. DS observes actions and moves accordingly. Her calm detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. And that clarity becomes her protection. When you choose peace over persistence, you free yourself from constant struggle. You stop measuring your worth by how much someone chooses you and start measuring it by how well you choose yourself. This inner shift transforms every relationship in your life. People treat you differently when they sense that you will not abandon yourself for them. In the end, everything you've heard today comes down to one truth. How you love yourself teaches others how to love you. Men don't change because of tears, explanations, or endless loyalty. They change when they realize access to you is not guaranteed, when your presence is a privilege, not a promise. The moment you choose self-respect over fear, boundaries over begging, and peace over chaos, the entire dynamic shifts. A man either rises to meet your standards or removes himself from your life, and neither outcome is a loss. One brings growth, the other brings freedom. Remember this, you were never meant to stay and suffer to prove your worth. Your strength is in knowing when to stand firm and when to walk away. When you stop tolerating what hurts you, you stop being taken for granted. When you choose yourself without guilt, you reclaim your power. If this message spoke to you, comment below and share which part hit your heart the most. Have you ever stayed longer than you should have? Or are you learning to choose your peace now? Your voice matters. Comment below and let this be the moment you choose yourself.